I, 37, male. Angela, my ex-wife, is 36. Had seen when we were in our middle of our 20s. We met while I was about 24, working for the same company. After 2 years of dating, we were married, and within 3 years of marriage, we had 2 daughters, now 9 and 7 years old. Though she wasn't happy about it, and the second pregnancy came unannounced, she didn't end it even though I had advised her it would be good with me should she do. Things were still wonderful between us, and we were as in love as we could have since I wanted to avoid subjecting her to anything she did not want following our first daughter. But following the second pregnancy, that changed. She started to get rather agitated and hostile, picking on our eldest or me frequently, but I believed this was just due to all the hormones and worked to calm her with this new Angela. Though things merely got progressively worse and my daughter and I had to walk on eggshells around her, we assumed this would improve after some time. Though she was meant to be a stay-at-home mom, I was handling everything. After our first child, she had stopped her job of her own volition and done all the housework, along with looking after our eldest while I worked, until she became pregnant a second time. She claimed she was too weary to handle housework along with caring after our children. Hence, we had to call a housekeeper while she was pregnant. I consented even though it's somewhat beyond our means. I agreed to pay a maid since I wasn't making enough at the time and wanted to avoid bothering Angela particularly during her pregnancy. After our second daughter was born, I thought she would come back tending to the house and children throughout the day. Let me also make it obvious that I was not among those husbands who neglected household chores after returning from work. Though I used to be tired from working, I did anything I could to help. Once, she delivered our youngest daughter. She would take a few months, I had imagined, but eventually she would recover, and we could resume our regular life. Still, several months went by, and she showed no change. She refused to help around the house and stayed exactly as agitated and snappy. She would simply spend all day seated at home watching TV. She would pay our neighbor to take the children to the park and hardly interacted with them, or anything, occasionally. Though I wouldn't want to come across as bitter, I did feel that way since I was working through day and night, and she wouldn't even do the minimal at home. Paying a housekeeper to handle all the cooking, cleaning, and other odd housework was also proving somewhat costly. I wanted to save money for our daughter's future too, and I had to handle all the other bills. Angela refused to assist me in any kind, hence that was very difficult. I thus realized that we couldn't continue like this after almost 6 months since the birth of my younger daughter and had to speak with Angela. Knowing that this would be a tough choice, I asked our parents to spend one day watching our girls. They consented. After 2 pregnancies, I sat Angela down and told her I know she was fatigued. Nevertheless, I wanted her to assist me here and work with me. I told her that we were finding it too costly to have a housekeeper. Thus, I needed her to honor her word and return to at least some of the housework so we may renegotiate and reduce the housekeeper's pay and save some money. She said no right away as she claimed she was too busy watching the children handle any of the housework and advised I should start making more money, rather of justifying my financial situation and blaming her. I told her I was doing my best already, but she had to do her best too, if she aimed to make this marriage successful. I also mentioned how she wasn't actually looking after the children as, from what I knew, she would merely let them watch television with her and spend hours sitting with her viewing ridiculous reality TV. And this is exactly what the housekeeper had remarked to me casually. She heated up and accused me of monitoring her via the housekeeper, so I quickly understood that bringing that up was a big mistake. She went on a tirade against me following that, claiming that she was done being pushed about by me and that she was done having to do all the work while I did nothing except spend a few hours every day seated at a desk. She then informed me that I should have paid for a maid, that it was unfortunate I had to ask her to assist me since I was meant to be the man of the house. She was merely reaching at straws to somehow make it appear like there was nothing wrong with her not doing anything all day. And I was the crazy one wanting her to truly contribute and carry her weight about the house. It was all incredibly nonsensical. We got into a big argument, and I responded by calling her a lazy cow who had already failed at being a decent mother while she labeled me a loser who couldn't afford to be with a woman like her anyhow. Our oldest daughter was terrified of her, and now she was failing as a wife as well. She shoved me quite forcefully when that comment really got to her. I stumbled and fell back on the coffee table quite forcefully, breaking the glass and injuring myself. I had to be hurried to the ER, and she stayed crying and apologizing to me all through. Fortunately, it was only my back that suffered. All of the injuries were surface level. But I trusted Angela less, and I could have really injured myself. She had to move out, I told her, since I didn't trust her around children, since it was unknown when she may lose her temper and cause damage to them also. For a week and until Angela arrived, I instructed my parents to look after our girls. She kept objecting and declared she would never allow this happen once more. But I simply no longer trusted her. She urged me to give her a chance. I nearly filed for divorce. By the end of the week, we had concluded she was going to go live with her parents for some time and undergo therapy. Only when she had been given a clean chit by a medical expert would I allow her to move back in with us. She was eager to work on it and improve, but clearly something was quite wrong with her since happy people behave differently. I agreed not to get divorced right then and give our marriage another chance, as I also wanted my daughters to grow up with their mother there. While we were living apart, we were also undergoing marriage counseling. But finally, it all proved to be pointless since she started cheating on me. While Angela lived with her folks, my parents had moved in to assist with my girls. We attended weekly marriage counseling sessions, and for a period things appeared to be improving. Her therapist contacted me as well. She informed me she had postpartum depression, but that she was improving. She had severe anger problems, one of which she had never experienced before, but after she shoved me, her symptoms got somewhat out of hand. And that served as our wake-up call as well. This continued at the 6-month mark and for over a year. I let her visit our daughters under my direction as well. I was happy to see that at last our circumstances seemed to be improving, and we might really make it work since she was gradually returning to her old self. Then, all of a sudden, she stopped showing up for our counseling appointments without any justification. She stopped answering me as well. But given her therapist kept me informed, I knew she was progressing. It made no sense to me, so for weeks I kept attempting to talk to her, but she would just blow me off saying she needed some alone time. At last, following almost 3 months of her avoiding me, I made plans to visit her parents' house. Her parents didn't like me and blamed me, so I hadn't done that before since I drove their daughter insane and had her act out like that. She had thus advised me that it would be better if I did not see her while she was living with them, as that would merely cause a lot of conflict, and that is most certainly the last thing we needed. She had been acting aloof and skipping counseling appointments, so I disregarded that rule and paid them nevertheless. She would look indifferent even when she would show up periodically, and I just could not get it. She would tell me everything was all good when I tried to speak with her personally over the phone or even on text, but her behavior suggested that she was definitely hiding something from me. I expected her to be at home the day I arrived at her parents' place, but she wasn't there. Her parents slammed the door shut in my face when I asked them where she was. They claimed they were not permitted to tell me. They were clearly enjoying this, and I felt something awful about it. So, standing in front of Angela's parents' house, I decided to phone her. I tried phoning her several times, but she didn't answer, and the second I became more and more paranoid. I so resolved to sneak about the home and somehow get myself inside by alone. Although I knew her parents typically left the kitchen door open, I decided not to even go that far since I noticed Angela seated on the swing her parents had in their backyard. The bad news was that she was making out with a man I didn't know while seated with her back to me. Though I haven't been able to forget it even now, it's been a long time since I saw them. It was the most terrible event of my life and is etched in my head. She was making out this guy, drew back as soon as he saw me, and by the time Angela turned around, I had already begun to head back to my car. I was in shock. Hence, she caught up with me and tried to stop me, but I was not hearing anything she was saying. She tried to grasp me, but I shook her off and instructed her not to touch me so she wouldn't. I then returned to my car and proceeded on the journey home. I informed my parents that I wanted them to search for a lawyer for me and let them know of what I had just seen when I visited Angela's parents' house. I blocked her everywhere as soon as I arrived home so she wouldn't have an opportunity to explain. She wasn't visible or heard from until we had to visit a court-appointed mediator to finalize our divorce. By then, I had essentially become a robot, serving just for the benefit of my girls, but I had emotionally shut down totally. Even when I discovered Angela was ending her parental rights, I felt nothing as she had decided she wanted to be with the man. Let's call him Sean, and she didn't want to be with us anymore. Then I seen her with the other day. He was her childhood friend. Although they had drifted apart following the end of high school, she had reconnected with him when she returned in with her parents and obviously developed feelings for him. Her parents also encouraged this, most likely, which explains why they had been correct about her making out in their garden. Though Angela was a married lady with 2 children, allegedly they had always wanted her to end up with Sean and were delighted Angela was finally choosing her own happiness, as if she had ever been able to choose anything other than that. She wanted to qualify for alimony, hence the divorce was a protracted procedure even though she had been cheating on me. It took us some time, but my attorney and I battled valiantly to ensure she received nothing in the divorce since it was all right, totally since I had been the one funding everything for so long while she lounged at home watching TV. The divorce arrived at last 5 years ago, and we achieved in our aim to ensure she left with nothing, though I knew I couldn't break since I had to take care of my girls since they had nobody but for me. The months I spent coping with the divorce were some of the toughest ones I had. I can't ever thank my parents enough for being there for me throughout while I balanced job and caring for my children. They were clearly quite helpful and encouraging. 5 years have passed, and even then the divorce seemed like the worst thing that might possibly happen to me. Now I am appreciative of it, as, had it not been for my choice to leave Angela, I do not believe I would be in the place I am in now. Since then, life has truly treated me well. Today, in every sense, I am in a much, much better place. Since I am paid better now and I don't have to spend money on anyone else except my girls, we have lately moved into a larger house. My parents also drop around from time to time and reside nearby. My girls are as content as can be, and I have friends that love me. A man just needs those things. And I am especially appreciative of the cosmos, as right now everything is going for me. Or it was until Angela returned some days ago. I opened the door just as the children were leaving for school, just about to head to work. The doorbell rang, and Angela was standing outside with a lad beside by. I knew Angela's son must be the youngster since he couldn't have been more than 3 or 4 years old. Her standing outside my door caught me off guard, and I was still processing it when she started crying and claimed she was come to apologies and straighten things out with me. She informed me she was at last ready to be a family once more and offer our marriage another shot. After all these years, I couldn't believe she was back here, and now she wanted to give our marriage another shot, as it was her will to make that decision. I didn't want to enter whatever this was, so within a single second I made up my choice and opted to close Turner away. Before that, though, I told her this was no longer her family. The day she betrayed me with Sean, I had ceased to be her husband. She herself had relinquished care of her daughter. The divorce was only a legal need. She thereby had no right to call us her family. Having stated so, I closed the door and instructed her to go since I wanted her nowhere near my property. Though I was truly furious, I would have thrown her out as well, but the young kid prevented me from acting in that manner. After I closed her out, I could hear her crying outside my door for a few minutes. I chose to ignore it, but once the coast was clear, I left to head off to work. I tried very hard not to consider it, as I could afford to let it happen, and it would simply weaken my will. I nearly succeeded in forgetting the Angela had even visited at my house. But I got a call from my parents asking an explanation as to why I had turned her away as soon as I got home from work. Angela had been heartbroken, they told me, having phoned them following my turn away and door closure on her face. Since she was in the process of divorcing Sean and at last had an opportunity to make things right with me, my parents said they were the ones who had provided her my new address and advised me to visit her. They informed me that Angela had contacted them approximately 1 month ago and that this had been under preparation for some time. My parents believed that Angela deserved another chance and instructed her where to locate me and what to say to her, since they felt it was about time I thought about my kids, since my daughters needed a mother and Angela was the best mother available. Without even asking whether I would be comfortable with it, I became rather enraged at them, as it was not their place to pardon her and choose to give her another shot. If the children had stayed at home, it could have been quite disastrous, and pulling something like this was quite dangerous of them. I told them off, but they refused to admit they had made a mistake since they had supported me through my divorce by looking after the children, and even now, sometimes they look after the kids and they believe that whether or not I wanted to mend with Angela is up to me. I couldn't take away from them, though, their equal right to determine what was best for the children. Given that they were ultimately my girls rather than theirs, I found it absurd of them to think otherwise. Although I will always be grateful for all they done for me during my divorce and respected them, I do not believe it was their place to let Angela re-enter my life. We argued a little, but they informed me that I was the one acting selfishly by not giving Angela another chance and out of line here. Though I informed them she had signed her rights away, they told me they had done their due research and she was a new lady now, deserving of being a part of my daughter's life. They accused me of destroying their life by being too conceited to recognize that they needed their mother and claimed it was disrespectful that I thought my girls or me would be harmed. After considering this a lot, it's been a few days now, and I don't think I was out of line or selfish. I, too, for not allowing my ex-wife another opportunity to be a mother. 1 week has gone since Angela showed up at my door with her son, and lately I learnt the truth regarding her relationship with her parents. Since I'm still trying to make sense of it personally, and I honestly find it so unsettling not even knowing where to start. How all of them had deceived me without a second thought is unbelievable. Apparently, they had been in contact with her all along. Not only had they told her my new address. After the divorce, I cut her off from my life, but they hadn't since they thought she would visit at some time. They just spoke once a month, maybe, but that was plenty for me to feel deceived by. After Angela was served with divorce papers, Sean had forced her sign away her rights and issued an ultimatum to either ditch her family and start a new life with him, or she could keep in touch with her children and battle for their custody. She would so have to part from him behind. My parents say that although she had a tough decision to make, she finally chose Sean to start a new family, instead of keeping the family she already had. Angela had contacted my parents shortly after I filed for divorce to let them know about her circumstances, and requested them to assist her as she wanted to still keep private contact with her children. She had informed them that both of us had been backing her into a corner. Either way, she wouldn't be able to see her children, as Sean had advised her to completely forsake her children, while I had been advocating for full custody with supervised visitation privileges. Still, she did battle for custody and defy Sean. Her odds of receiving partial custody were low, considering her divorce's conditions, together with her past of struggling to control her temper. Fighting for custody felt then like a waste of her time and money. Should she choose to fight, there was a very real risk she might lose Sean and custody of our girls ultimately. And my folks entered the picture here. She met them in secret, and essentially asked them to let her keep contact with her daughters and support her by serving as the link between them. She knew she would not have visiting rights, let alone oversight, once she signed her rights away. But my parents would have done, intending to profit from that. They went behind my back to let Angela meet our daughters, so successfully selling me for years. They also realized they couldn't, in good conscience, keep a mother apart from her children, stabbing their own son in the back for years, but it didn't affect their conscience one bit. Angela's plight touched them. They informed me that Angela would be invited over and allowed to spend time with us every time I would drop our children off at their place. My parents would pay my children with presents and candies, so they would keep their lips quiet about it. They never told me they were meeting their mother. My girls would tell me that they played games with their grandparents and friend any time I would ask them about what they had done at their grandparents' place. Though evidently that's what my parents had advised my daughter to refer to their mother in case I asked them about their day, I always believed they must be talking about my parents, real friends, when I already knew. That my daughters had been lying to me as well astounds me. However, I pardoned them since Angela and my parents had clearly coerced and threatened them into silence, and since they are young. When I asked my girls whether they had been meeting their mother behind my back, they began to cry and told me they could tell me, as they would be punished by God if they did. I knew the truth from my parents. Angela and my dad had been so evasive and ambiguous all along, as they clearly understood that they would be in great danger should they tell me the truth. Since it just as readily could have been someone else, someone more dangerous than Angela, I also felt like a horrible father for never asking my children which friends of their parents they were spending time with. I never would have either, but since I have a restraining order against all of them right now, I am ending it now. My parents emailed me to inform me the truth, so I already have evidence of this. 2 days following my argument with them. They had thought that the email would somehow help me to forgive everyone involved, as it would let me realize how desperate Angela was to be a mother to her girls without sacrificing the claimed love of her life. But all that it did was let me see that I cannot trust nobody anymore, since everyone here was a dirty little liar. Angela signed away her parental rights as well, which is hilarious since she had to meet our children in secret like it was criminal, all because Sean was supposed to be her one true love, and she wanted no interaction with her former family. Now, though, even they were divorcing, and all that proved to be for nothing. They even produced a son together. My parents say Sean wanted nothing to do with her or his child right now, since he was going away in a few months and had a job opportunity. Angela had lately started working in again. They had been bickering for a long time since she didn't want to relocate with their son after he had begun kindergarten here. 3 months ago, Sean told her he was done and he was starting that job and moving out. It had at last all come to a head. Being a family man no longer appealed to him since it amply shone that he would have to give his own future and happiness up front to ensure her happiness, and he was not ready for that. Though the only reason this made me feel like justice had finally been done was to make me sad for Angela. My lawyer has been contacted already, and the restraining order petition has been submitted. Moving forward, my girls and I will never be seeing their grandparents or their mother again, and they seem to be good with that for now. We have also had a proper conversation about all of this. We are still going to go to therapy and attempt to work things out, though, since I know this will be challenging for them, and most certainly has been for the past 5 years. Still, this all stops now. Second update. Hello, people. I greatly appreciate all of your attention and help here. I really appreciate so many individuals sending beautiful notes and blessings to my daughters. Not expected to show up in court in a few days, my parents and Angela have received restraining orders. I have blocked them on every conceivable platform and advised my friends not to interact with them should they get in touch. I have no idea how they feel about any of this. I have also heightened the protection surrounding my property and spent a few days working from home. I alerted my girls about the matter and spoke with their school of events. I first didn't want their education to suffer because of Angela and my parents, but I first didn't meant on allowing them go to school for a few days. Teachers are now expected to monitor them and not let anybody else pick them up after school aside from me. I'm sure they will attempt, hence I'm doing everything in my can to make sure they cannot reach us. It's been good thus far. I hope they still stay away after we have that restraining order. Change 3. Goodbye. This will thus be a somewhat brief update, but we obtained a restraining order. And for the next 5 years, all 3 of those crazies will have to keep their distance from my girls unless they wish to suffer horrible consequences. Clearly, I'm still maintaining all the security protocols I implemented for some time, since the last I observed them appeared to be somewhat agitated, and I want to avoid any risk. Regular family counseling sessions are attended by my daughters and myself. I believe that in the next several months we will make great development. We have gone rather far already. To be honest, I only want for my daughters to be happy right now. So kindly keep forwarding your warmest wishes to us. We certainly need it.